Welcome back to the second basic tutorial for LibreOffice Calc. Today I will talk about strings, arrays, and functions. I will continue using the spreadsheet and code from the last video, but you don't need the spreadsheet to understand the code. What I will do today is, firstly, put long chunks of our code into functions. Then, I will make it so that the products I chose from the last video are put into an array. And lastly, I will make a function that will write the products I chose from each shop into two columns, like this. The first change I will do is make the variables for the current document, sheet, and cell global variables. That will make it so that they are shared between functions and I don't need to send them to each function every time I want to use it. So to do that, just type in global so that they are global variables. And to make sure that they are not accessed before they are initialized, I will just put this code here. So this will run first. And let's try it now. And you can see that it works. So we've made the code global. These objects, I mean. Next, let's declare an array to fill in the items. So in BASIC, arrays are kind of strange. They are not, you can have a lot of options for arrays. So they are base 0. So you access an array, this is the first element, but you declare them like they are base 1. So this, if I type in dim array 1, array 0, this means that it is an array with 1 element, not 0. And this means 2 elements. If you type in option base 1, then this will work properly and you will have an array with base 1, but I don't like that. So to declare our arrays, let's name it the first array, items A, and if there is no number between the brackets, that means that it is an array that has no size. So we need to declare the size first. And as variant, because this is a string, like, a string, I know that this is a string and I don't need to declare it as a string, so I declare it as a variant. A variant is kind of like a var or a let in JavaScript. Basically, it can be anything you want. And as far as I know, here in LibreOffice Calc and Basic, all variables, if there is no type declared, they start as a variant. And let's declare an items B also as variant, and let's declare two numbers that will track the size of the arrays, but I will also show you a function that returns the size of an array, because there is like no functionality already in LibreOffice Calc Basic. So this is dim AI, stands for A index as an integer, and dim BI as integer. Now I will just initialize AI to 0 and BI to 0. And now I don't like this 100. I told you in the last video that I will make it so that it will just go by how long this column is, and let me show you how to do that. So we will declare our first function. This will be called a getRange. Function getRange, and it will have a cell name as variant. So the cell name will be where we start. So I want to start from F1 here, go down. So we will send F1. And also when you declare a function, so functions are kind of weird in BASIC. When you declare a function, you write the return type like this. So this is the name of the function and this is the return type. And we also need to end the function. Now there is no like return x really. What you do in BASIC is the name of the function is the return variable. So the name of the function will be returned. So to return, you just write get range equals whatever. If the, you know, that is how you return the value for the function. It's weird, but it's very easy to get used to. So let's just declare a few variables. So this is our cursor, basically, you know, this, just selecting something. As an object, I explained what objects are last video. Dim range as an object. And now we'll go like this. So our cursor equals current sheet, our global variable here, current sheet dot create cursor by range, and just current sheet dot get cell range by name. You don't have to get it by name, but it's much easier. It's very intuitive to get it by name because you can just look up here. Now we need to go cur dot go to end of used area. True. I don't know why true, but it's just like that. And what this will do is gets this and go to the end of the used area. So you can go both horizontally and vertically, but I just need to go vertically. So the end of the used area would be right here. And that will get this cell here. And now range is equal to current sheet dot get cell range by name, current cursor dot absolute name, and now we return get range. So this is how I return get range. So I just type in range dot range address dot end row. Our end row right here, number 43. This is a function that is like really good, and you can to make it you know, with columns instead of rows, just type in end column. But I need it for row, so end row. And this is our function. So now instead of to 100, now we can get exactly how many you know, elements we have selected. So I send in F1 right here. So this is where I want to start, from F1. And now let's try this. Let's try if it works. It works. And I don't doesn't matter, but it does actually get like 43, but I think it returns 42. It returns the index in the array, so it actually returns 42, but that is kind of good for us, I think. I'm not sure. Check that for yourself. But if you do it like this, it just works. Next, let's just put in some code that we use a lot, and that is kind of an eyesore, you know, annoying to look at, into functions. So this chunk of code right here, it's quite annoying. So let's put this into a function. Basically what this does is just returns the lesser number that is not equal to 0. So if it's not equal to 0, and if it's lesser than the other one, it will return that. That can be easily put into a function. So let's just type in function return lesser. And now we have well, number 1 as integer and number 2 as integer. and return lesser, so it will return one of these integers, so as integer. Now I paste in this code and these annoying tabs, and now I also need to end function. So basically, instead of temp, because we don't have temp here, it's out of scope. Temp is kind of unnecessary at the moment, but that's fine. Instead of temp, we just type in return lesser and just replace all instances of temp with return lesser, all instances of price A with num1, and all instances of price B with num2. And now, if I want to use this function many times in the code, I can just call it. So now, instead of, we remove this big annoying chunk of code, now we can have temp be the lesser number. So temp is return lesser of price A and price B. So temp will basically be what this huge function returns will be in temp. And now let's try it out if I missed anything. It works. Still works. Anyway. Is it just me or is the result different? Doesn't matter. It's probably fine. Price A, where did that come from? Num1. It should work now. Yeah, works now. I was right. I missed that. I'm sorry. Now, let's start writing into the array. So, let's just have a simple check if temp is equal to price A. So if temp is equal to price A, then we've chosen product from shop A. Then, let's also end if, just so, I don't forget. Then, redim, preserve, and items A, and A index. What does this do? So, remember how we declared items A and items B as empty arrays. So they have nothing in them. So redim, what redim does is it allocates a space for the array the size of AI. AI is 0, but as I told you, arrays are weird, so allocating an array with size 0 actually makes it size 1. Yeah, that's basic. And what preserve does, this is very important. Preserve means that if you just write redim, then that means that it will delete all the data in the array. So you basically start with a new array, but just the same name. Preserve means that it will preserve the existing items in the array, and if you make the array larger, it will keep the items in the array at the same position. And if you shrink the array, you will just lose the ones that, would go out of bounds. So now, because we only make it bigger, A index only grows, that means that the items in our array, we won't lose any items because we won't remove them. Now, let's actually, add in the items. So how do we do that? Well, this arrow has an index, and this we can just get the name of the item right here. So this is A, which means that X is 0 because starts from 0, which means that items A is equal to current sheet dot get cell by position 0 and I. Dot string. The dot string is important. So what this does is it gets, from 0, which is column A, and row I, which is the same row as our arrow. And then let's increase A index or AI by 1. Else, so if temp is not equal to price A, just do the same for price B. And, I'll just change it for items B. But it's essentially the same code. Well, it is the exact same code. So we have that done with, but where, how do we type it out? Well, I'll show you that, but I don't like this function here. I don't like this block of code. We can put it in a function. So let's just write a function called, set price or set price, okay? But this is not a function, it is a sub. Sub set price, and let's just have price. You can have it as integer, but it doesn't matter here because it can be an integer. Maybe I'll want it in a double or a float, so it can just stay like this. So what's the difference between a sub and a function? Because, sub set price and function set price would probably have the same effect. Well, here's the thing. Sub is like in C-style languages where you write void. So sub does not return. Maybe you noticed how I wrote sub set price, but I didn't wrote as something because it doesn't return anything. Sub doesn't return anything. It's a void basically. So I'll just paste this, and it also should work. Let's try it out. Also, here's a thing. If you have your cursor inside a function or a sub, it will execute only that sub or only that function. So make sure your cursor is inside the main. Will it work? No? Huh. Oh. Well, that's embarrassing. We need to call set price. You don't need to write call. You can also write just set price, but I like to write call. And you don't need to write price in brackets. You can write it without brackets and just a space. But I like it this way. See? It works perfectly, despite that embarrassing mistake. Next thing is to write this array. And, okay, we have items A and items B. Well, how do we send those in a sub? Because I'll do a sub. How do we send it in a sub? So we do that by write array. Write array. And now items A as variant and items B as variant. And sub, just so we don't forget. And now I need to loop through these, but I don't want to send items A index, items B, and B index. So what happens now? Well, we need a function that returns the size of the array, which is very easy. Let's write a function called array len, for length, with an array as variant. I found this function on the internet. As an integer. By the way, if you don't know how to do something, just Google it. See, I didn't know how to do a function like this, so I just Googled it and found out array length is equal to upper bound of the array minus lower bound again of the array plus 1, because you know how I told you the thing in the beginning about how arrays are annoying? Yeah. So upper bound and lower bound, well, basic has a weird thing with arrays. So you can declare arrays as array of 1, but you can declare them as, for example, array 5 to 10. And so 5 is the lower bound and 10 would be the upper bound. So this makes sure that there are no errors with the size of the array. So this would work on pretty much any array. Now let's write our write array function. So for I equals 0 to array len of items A. And because it's a bit weird, we need to write -1. Yeah, it's confusing. Just, you know, think about it when you're typing it. Not stop. Step 1. And right next here. So for, now what happens is we need to get current cell, which is equal to current sheet dot get cell by position 8 and I plus 1. Why? Well, we want to write it here, right? So this is 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So I is the 8th column from the start, or the 9th. And we don't want to write it, we don't want to start writing here. So this is 0, this is 1. So 8, 1, 8, 2, 8, 3, and etc. And now we need to set the string of the current cell. So current cell dot string is equal to items A of I. Very simple, you know, works like a charm. And just copy paste and change it for items B. Change it for items B, and right here 9, because we go to items from shop B. And that's basically it. I hope that it'll work. Let's call, what's it called? Write array. Wow. Let's call write array with items A and items B. Will it work? Oh, works like a charm. Look at that. And if we go right here, shop A, okay, we chose the, what's it called? The graphics card. Of course it works. This, a CPU, it's cheaper in shop B. So it works. Now, just some, also another thing about functions and subs is the name, the values that you send into the function, by definition, are sent by reference. So what does that mean? So if I write, for example, in a C style language, I don't know, void function, and send in int A, it will copy A and send it to the function. So if I change A in the function, if I write A equals 2, this will not matter to the original A. So it won't change the original A, it will change the A that we put in. But if I write in int and, was it like int and A, this is a reference to A. So this will change A. Because this, we don't copy A, we just send A as it is. In BASIC, this is the default. In BASIC, sending a variable by value is the default. I mean by reference, not by value. By reference. And how do you decide, like, if I don't want to change it? Because here, I don't care. For me, it's actually better that I sent it as a, what's it called, as a reference instead of a value, because I didn't need to copy it, and copying is, well, relatively expensive. Not really, but it is. You want to avoid copying, And here in basic, you don't copy, you send it by reference by default. If you don't want to do that, you write by val. By default, if you change the default to be by val, then by ref is sending by reference. I prefer sending by, I think most of the time I send by reference, because for example this function does not change num1 and num2, it just compares them. None of these functions actually change num1 and num2, they just compare them. So just keep it as a default. But if there was some other function, send it like something that's a formula or something that would modify the variables I sent in, then it would be much better to send it as a value. Anyway, that's it. I think this is the end of the series. Like, we made a pretty big file, a pretty nice macro here. And if I just do some nice spacing, see, we got to 100 lines. This is probably the end. This is, I think, everything you need to make good macros in LibreOffice Calc Basic. And, well, that's it. It was really fun learning Basic 50 something years after it was invented. But I think that this is something that's really important and really useful, and I think this is something that everyone can use if they're a frequent user of this. Because, for example, if I wanted to add another better CPU or GPU, I would just need to do it like this. Move these down and add, I don't know, example CPU, and this one has, let me choose the example one. So if I choose the example one that's like, almost free, if I just write this, whoop, oh, see, it adds the example. And first, oh, okay, makes sense. It adds the example. So, I don't need to recalculate everything by hand. And this program, this macro does it for me. So I think that macros are very, very useful. And I think you should know them. And also use free and LibreOffice, free Libre open source software. And I think you should just also have fun. Anyway, that's it. And enjoy the rest of your day. And I hope I'll make another one. But yeah. Also remember to like and subscribe. Not enough of you do that. I got like 1 subscriber from the last video. Anyway, bye.